We have got breaking news crossing. The House just passed an Iran war powers resolution. 4 Republicans joined Democrats in voting to rein in Trump's military action. I want to bring in MS Now's Kevin Fry on the Hill. Kevin, what happened?
Yeah, Steph, look, I mean, this is the same 4 Republicans that joined with Democrats the last time the House passed one of these resolutions, which is several weeks ago. But, of course, this is notably coming after we saw this renewed escalation in the conflict just over the weekend in that a handful of U.S. service members who were killed as part of this. Now, of course, this isn't necessarily going to come with any form of teeth to it, because as we know, the one that passed a few weeks ago, it passed in both the House and the Senate, but it didn't actually have to, and this is all in the procedural mumbo-gumbo, but it didn't actually have to get signed off by the president. So its legal enforceability is very much in question. Nonetheless, it, of course, allows Democrats to send a message, especially heading into the midterms, especially heading right into the August recess, that Republicans are okay with this war and they're willing to give the president unfettered power to go ahead. The Senate is also expected to be voting on a similar resolution in the next hour, so we will see we'll have a chance to see if any additional Republicans will join on that side with Democrats to try to put some constraints on this war. Within the last week, we have already seen Democrats here on the Hill transition to a new strategy to try to put a check here by, for example, voting against the annual defense bill, trying to derail extra funding for the Defense Department as a way to put other guardrails on this conflict. So Democrats are kind of coming to the realization that the war powers alone are not going to cut it if they want to put an end to this conflict.
Kevin, thank you. All right, reining in some presidential power.
Yeah, well, and I think the key phrase there isn't much teeth to this. I think, you know, and would Donald Trump pay attention to this? You know, he's not really into checks and balances these days. This war is about as popular as Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. You know, he's down in the low 30s in terms of approval ratings, and I think 2/3 of the country is against this war right now. That's why those Republicans crossed over and joined the Democrats. It's, you know, this is about the only way they can pass legislation these days is when the Republicans join the Democrats on something that's pretty popular, like reining in Trump. But this war is getting more and more unpopular. And as you were saying earlier, you know, there is some talk that maybe he could wrap this up by the fall. You know, how many times have they said this?
We've been hearing that. When do we hear it? Every Sunday night before the market opens on Monday.
That's right.
Yeah, I think, you know, as I said, from the perspective of younger people, I think this needs to be further humanized beyond kind of the gas prices. There was a young veteran I sat with a couple of weeks ago who had to choose. He went back to Texas to work in his parents' restaurant. He cut his hand in the kitchen. He had 9 stitches. He had to choose between anesthesia, which was separate than the stitches, and his rent. $800. So he told me he raw dogged it. Okay? That's a veteran.
Wow.
That's someone who volunteered to serve our country, just like the 20 veterans every single day. We talked about, you know, your family's history, Dan, who lose their lives by suicide. Like, this is what's happening. And when we cavalierly talk about not just the young men and women who passed away this week, who died this week, but the 100 or so with potentially brain injuries since the 4th of July.
Just to be clear, there was no suicide in my family. We were talking about my dad's service in the Army. I just want to be really clear about that. And, you know, I think it's really important, as you mentioned, John, the human element of this, and then we go back to the economic element or the political element. You know, a lot of these Republican congresspeople, they have to go back into their districts, right? And this is going to happen in the next couple of weeks. And is it that they separate themselves? Do they put more sort of sunlight between the policies that are going on here, especially when you have something like that passes? You know, this could be a very interesting time as we get, listen, we know once we get to Labor Day, it's over. It's a sprint, you know, towards the midterms. And I think a lot of stuff that happens over the next 5-6 weeks is really going to be determinant of, you know, how this kind of, you know.
Then help us with this, Liz. Obviously, everything around this war is not winning for this president. So he's now diverting our attention and taking us back to tariffs. Okay, his top trade negotiator said the strategy is not changing. It is full steam ahead. The Supreme Court may have shot them down. We're going to look for a new way to implement them. Who, at this point, is the voting base who's saying right on? Because the argument early on where he said, this is America first, we're going to bring manufacturing jobs back, even if he could sell that last year, we now have a year's worth of data where manufacturing jobs have dropped, jobs across the board have dropped. Who is he making this argument to that it's winning for? Not businesses, not consumers, not the American voter.
Yeah, and it's similar to the Iran war. No one asked for the Iran war. No one is asking for these tariffs, and they undermine two of his key campaign promises: no more wars, and I'm going to tackle prices. And there's a direct line between this war, between the tariffs, and prices going up. And if you look at certain states where we have very big elections this year, Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Maine, that does a lot of trade with Canada. Both Michigan and Maine do. They're being hit very, very hard by these tariffs. And Democrats might not be super popular in all these places, as we discussed before, but they can make the point that, hey, the Republican over here, has he stood up to the president on Iran? Has he stood up to the president on tariffs? Usually they haven't.
Farmers. Okay, we haven't mentioned farmers. I mean, we need China to buy our soybeans. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of folks think that we lost the trade war for all intents and purposes. We need access to their magnets, the rare earth materials. We need them to buy our soybeans. And this new asymmetric warfare, all these drones, who makes all the components that go into them? China. So you think about this, it does come back to, us attacking our adversaries. This is what we're doing right now in the trade war. We're focused on Canada, which is our second largest trading partner.
And our friend.
And our friend. We love Carney here, right? So my point is think about farmers. They're going to need to get bailouts. We saw that in the first administration. No farmers who are proud farmers, not a farmer, but I suspect, who are multi-generational, they don't want government bailouts.
Well, it's not a business strategy for them.
Well, and Stephanie, the other thing, too, is, we need to deal with, the overarching problem as I see it, which is we have a system in this country now. It's corruption without competence. They just announced, I think, in the Washington Post this morning, they're reporting this morning that measles cases are at their highest point in 35 years. You can't eat a salad right now in this country without worrying about getting explosive diarrhea. And Donald Trump is going out in front of the cameras, before the dignified transfer and saying that these soldiers who died, they were saying that they want to see Iran have their nuclear, arsenal taken away. He's putting words in the mouths of fallen soldiers. This administration, this presidency, the wheels have come off, and the people can see it. And the tariff policy and the war policy are two glaring examples.
But it's corruption without competence or consequence.
Yeah.
So they're not letting up anytime soon.
Winter is coming.